No one talks about Earth Zone Zero in public. It is marked in red on every global and galactic map, a place surrounded by deserts, electric storms, and silence. Not even birds fly near it. Not even satellites pass above it. It is the only place on Earth where humanity does not go anymore, not because they are afraid, but because they remember what happened there. After the Great War between Earth and the Galactic Alliance 50 years ago, that zone changed. Once a human city stood. They're full of people, laughter, life. Then something was unleashed. Some say it was a weapon. Some say it was Earth's soul itself reacting to pain. But the city disappeared. What was left behind was a scar on the planet. A place where nothing grows, where time feels strange, and where even machines act wrong. For 50 years, Earth placed warning signs and walls. No one was allowed in, not even humans. They called it the Forbidden Zone. But now, someone was entering it, and it wasn't humans. A massive alien ship hovered above Earth's atmosphere. It belonged to the Deathworlders, a proud warrior race from planet Drellin. They were known across the galaxy as the most fearless, most powerful, and most aggressive species ever created by nature. They lived on a world filled with volcanoes, ice storms, acid rain, and constant danger. To survive there meant you were already stronger than 99% of the galaxy. They called themselves Deathworlders because death itself feared them. When they heard about Earth's forbidden zone, they laughed. One of their generals said, "If humans fear it, we must conquer it." They did not ask permission. They just sent down 2,000 of their strongest warriors, fully armed, fully trained, fully confident. They landed right in the center of the zone. From Earth's command center, humans watched quietly. No one clapped. No one cheered. No one warned. They just watched. A young human officer turned to her commander and asked, "Sir, should we stop them?" The commander shook his head slowly. "They wouldn't listen," he said. "Let the zone teach them." The alien soldiers spread out quickly. Their scanners showed no danger, just strange readings, shifting gravity, high radiation, magnetic storms, and some kind of whisper. The air smelled wrong. The sky above the zone was a constant swirl of gray and black, lighting cracked sideways like veins in the sky, still. The Deathworlders laughed. One even removed his helmet and shouted into the wind, "We are not afraid of Earth's ghosts." They set up a base camp, planted flags, and activated their surveillance drones. Everything seemed quiet, too quiet that night. They slept in groups, guarded and alert, but one unit didn't report in the morning. Their camp was empty, no bodies, no blood, no sign of a fight, only their weapons remained. Bent and twisted like soft metal, the Deathworlder commander frowned, but stayed calm. "This place plays tricks," he said. "We move together from now on." Meanwhile, far away in a secret Earth bunker, a group of old scientists watched old video recordings from 50 years ago. They saw the same fog, the same lights, the same silence. Back then, the humans tried to escape it too. But the zone didn't let them. Only a few lived to tell the tale. One of them, now a very old man in a wheelchair, whispered, "They don't understand, do they?" Another replied, "No, they think it's just a place." The old man shook his head. "It's not a place. It's a memory." Back in the zone, things were changing fast. The Deathworlders began losing signal with their ship. Their drones returned with corrupted footage, images of the sky melting, the ground breathing, something moving in the mist, something large. With many eyes and no shape, still, the commander ordered them forward. "Whatever tricks this zone holds, we are Deathworlders. We face nightmares and laugh." They didn't laugh for long. On the second night, the sky turned red. One soldier screamed as he was pulled into the ground by black vines that moved like snakes. Another fired his gun, and the bullets curved back at him. By morning, they were down to 1,900. 100 gone without a trace, and still no answer from outside. One of the lieutenants began shaking. "I saw something," he whispered. "It wore my face, and it smiled," another said. "I heard my dead brother's voice calling me from the shadows." The commander roared, "Enough. We press forward. Fear is the weapon of the weak." But even he felt something cold brushing Against his spine, something that didn't want to be seen, something watching and still. Earth said nothing. They watched quietly. Because they knew what the Deathworlders didn't. Once the zone awakens, it doesn't go back to sleep easily. The Deathworlders had no idea what they had truly entered. They believed this was just another wild planet zone, a testing ground to prove their strength. For them, pain was a teacher, and fear was just another feeling to overcome. They had tamed lava beasts, hunted acid leopards, and crushed sandstorms with their bare hands. Earth's forbidden zone. They thought it was just another myth made by weaklings who couldn't handle true danger. Their commander, General Viaharic, stood 7 feet tall. His body layered in dark blue armor made from Drellin bone metal. He had never lost a battle, never retreated, never bowed to any species. As he walked through the gray fog of the zone, he grinned under his helmet. "This planet fears us," he said. "Let it know we do not return that fear." Behind him, rows of elite soldiers marched. In silence, each step they took disturbed the ground. And yet the dust never rose. It was as if the land didn't want to be touched. Still, they moved forward, setting up motion sensors. Throwing scanning drones into the air, the scanners picked up strange shapes, trees without bark, shadows that didn't match the sun, patches of land where gravity flipped for 2 seconds, and then returned to normal. None of this impressed them. "Environmental glitches," one soldier said. "Natural mutation zone," another joked. One of them even danced inside a gravity hole, laughing as he floated. The others cheered. Arrogance filled the air thicker than the fog, but arrogance has a cost. And in the Forbidden Zone, that cost always comes fast. On the third night, their camp changed. They didn't move it, but it moved itself. The tents were not where they left them. The campfire circle had turned into a spiral, made of their own tools, and the night felt longer, much longer. Their timekeepers showed 2 a.m., but the sun never rose. Still, General Viaharic dismissed the signs. "Mind tricks," he said. "Perhaps Earth's old defense tech is trying to scare us." But his voice didn't sound confident anymore. The real terror began when the first squad sent to scout the eastern ridge failed to return. Not just failed, disappeared. No gunfire, no distress call, not even a footprint remained. Only a broken communicator was found. Floating 5 feet above the ground, spinning slowly in the air like it was waiting that same night, Lieutenant Merrick started screaming in his sleep. He shouted in a language no one knew, a language not even recorded in the Galactic database. When they woke him, his eyes were wide, and he said just one thing: "The rocks were watching me." Others began seeing things too, reflections of themselves doing things they didn't remember. Voices of their mothers, lovers, and lost comrades calling them deeper into the fog. Some followed those voices and never returned. Some stayed and lost the ability to speak, yet still. They told themselves it was a test. General Viaharic gathered the survivors and shouted, "We are Deathworlders, the universe's apex hunters." He slammed his fist into the ground and growled, "This planet plays tricks, but tricks are for children." He didn't notice the ground under his fist didn't crack, it pulsed. Softly, like something breathing underneath the soil. The next day, the zone responded. A mist rolled in so thick it cut off all sight beyond 5 feet. Sound didn't travel, radios failed, helmets echoed back their own voices and reversed. Whispers, and then came the laughter. But not from the Deathworlders, from the fog itself. It was high-pitched, layered. Almost childlike, one soldier opened fire at the sound. His bullets moved in a straight line, and then curved in midair and flew back at him. He didn't even scream. He just vanished in a burst of red light. More soldiers panicked. One ran, only to find himself at the same spot 3 times. Another removed his helmet and begged for silence. They found him whispering to his own hand, which he had drawn eyes on using his blood. General Viaharic ordered retreat, but retreat was not possible no matter how far they walked. The horizon didn't change, and the mist whispered their names louder. Each time they stepped away in orbit, the Deathworlder mothership watched in confusion. They saw no signs of distress, just blank data, black screens. Silent feeds. The commanding officer contacted Earth. "What have you done?" He demanded. The human reply was calm. "We warned you," he said. "The zone is not for you." Then the human signal ended. No more answers came. No rescue ships arrived, and the 5,000 Deathworlder soldiers were now just 1,900, but they didn't know that yet. Because when the fog clears, they would see it a hill covered in armor, their own arranged neatly in rows like graves. Above them, carved in alien stone, words in their own language. "We remember those who enter, even if they forget themselves." In orbit above Earth, the Deathworlder flagship floated like a beast of steel. Inside its command center, officers shouted over broken signals and static screens. None of their troops had reported in 20 hours. No video feed, no vitals, no maps, just silence, thick and endless. "Try another frequency," barked Admiral Krall. His claws tapping against the console, sweat dripped down his temple, and Deathworlders never sweat. His second-in-command said, "It's like something is swallowing the data before it leaves the zone." They tried reaching out to Earth's command. They sent high-priority galactic codes, emergency flags, a formal request under the Interplanetary Treaty, and Earth replied. Finally, one message 3 seconds long, a voice with no emotion simply said, "We warned you," and then the signal. Cut again, no tone, no closing, just... Gone. Admiral Krall growled. "They did something. This is sabotage." But deep down, he didn't believe that he had seen sabotage before. Explosions, viruses, hijacked comes. This wasn't that. This was different. This felt like the planet itself had gone quiet. Meanwhile, down on the surface, inside Earth's hidden base beneath Antarctica, a group of human military commanders sat in total silence. No one looked at the big screen that showed satellite views of the zone. There was nothing to see anyway, just a storm of mist and distortion. An older general with one cybernetic eye finally spoke. "They've lost 2/3 of their forces," another officer nodded. "Cades and the rest are scattered or hallucinating." A young cadet, nervous and confused, asked, "Shouldn't we help them?" The room turned cold at his question. The general replied slowly, "You don't open the door when something is screaming inside it." In another room, a classified file was opened for the first time in decades. The file had one name, Project Morntide. Inside were black and white images of the zone from 50 years ago. Human soldiers lying in patterns, eyes open but empty, weapons melted into bone, and one blurry photo of a massive shadow standing in the smoke with no feet touching the ground. Last page had a single handwritten sentence. "The zone remembers everything. Pain, death, trespass, back." In orbit, the Deathworlder Admiral made a final call to Earth's High Council. A human woman answered the call. This time she wore no uniform, no insignia, just a plain black jacket, and she smiled without warmth. "You should recall your fleet," she said. Admiral Krall clenched his jaw. "You think this is funny?" "No," she said. "I think it's familiar." He slammed his fist on the desk. "You let 2,000 of our finest warriors walk into a trap." She didn't blink. "We didn't invite them. They walked in with pride." "Not permission," Krall barked. "What is that zone? What's inside it?" The human woman leaned forward. "It's not what's inside. It's what's left behind." He froze. She added one final thing before the screen went black. "You didn't step onto land. You stepped into a wound. Far below in the zone." A Deathworlder soldier stood trembling. He held his weapon close. But it didn't feel like a weapon anymore. It felt cold, heavy, hollow, like it had been emptied by the air itself around him. Trees with metal bark pulsed with faint light, a strange heartbeat rhythm. The fog parted just slightly, revealing a wall made of stone. On it were names, thousands, all written in different languages, all screaming silently. He reached out to touch the wall, and the wall reached back. Not with a hand, with memory. He saw flashes. Earth cities burning, children crying in bunkers, machines failing, families turning to ash under alien fire. Then he saw himself not now, but as a ghost in those memories the zone didn't care about. Time. He screamed and fell back. When his squad found him, he had aged 20 years, hair white, skin wrinkled, and he whispered over and over, "I didn't know, I didn't know, I didn't know." Above, Earth's military simply watched. No rescue, no words, just silent tracking of how many were left. The general asked, Should we prepare for survivors? The answer came quietly. If they survive, they'll never be the same. The zone didn't just kill the body, it cracked the soul in Earth. Would never let that escape again. The zone did not fight with fire or bullets, it did not roar or scream, it whispered, and the whisper became a storm in their minds inside the mist. The remaining Deathworlders walked slowly. They were warriors, used to acid, gravity shifts, and alien parasites, but this was different. The fog was thicker now. It didn't just hide what was ahead. It swallowed memories, names slipped from their minds, orders felt like dreams. Time began to stretch 1 minute. Felt like an hour passed, and a blink. One soldier looked at his hand and whispered, "Whose hand is this?" Another spoke to his helmet like it was a friend. Their minds, once sharp like blades, were now rusting from the inside. General Viharak tried to keep order. He barked commands, slammed his fists, pulled soldiers into line, but even he could not stop what the zone was doing to them. Not with strength, not with discipline. The land began to change without warning. The soil turned soft. Like ash, their boots sank with every step. Structures appeared in the mist, buildings made of metal and bone. Not Earth's buildings, not alien either. Something in between. Something wrong. They entered one of the ruins inside. The walls were lined with old Earth flags, faded, torn, but untouched by wind. A chair sat in the middle, facing a cracked screen. It flickered on as they entered. The screen showed them their entire team. Not now, but how they would die. Each one, their deaths played like videos. Some burned, some aged into dust, some turned into stone. One soldier fired at the screen. The bullet turned midair and returned to his weapon. The gun exploded in his hand. He screamed, his fingers turned to glass. Still, the zone said nothing. Only the whisper remained outside. One soldier found a child's toy, a spinning top. Dusty but whole, he picked it up and it spun on its own. A soft lullaby played, but the song was in his native tongue, and he had never visited Earth before. He dropped it and backed away. The top kept spinning even after he was gone. Deeper in the zone, things became stranger. They found a river, but it flowed upward. Fish swam through air. Each one had a human face, eyes closed, mouths moving, whispering names of the dead. The soldiers built a temporary shelter. They tried to sleep, but their dreams were not theirs. They dreamt of Earth cities. They'd never seen wars. They'd never fought children. They never had one by one. They woke up crying one by one. They stopped speaking. General Viharak gathered the remaining troops, only 600 left. Now the rest had wandered off or collapsed from things that could not be seen. He shouted, "This place is testing us, but we will not break." But his voice shook. His armor felt heavier. His heart felt like it was being watched. Then came the screams. Not there's others from deeper in the fog. They followed the sound and found something that made even the strongest among them fall to their knees. It was a statue, gigantic, of a human soldier, eyes closed, arms outstretched like he was offering protection. But the statue was alive. Its skin pulsed like breathing stone. Its mouth opened slowly, and a voice spoke from it. Not loud, calm, almost gentle. "You are not welcome here." It said. The Deathworlders raised their weapons, but none could shoot their fingers, refused to move, like something inside them understood that to fire here was to fire at memory itself. Behind the statue were rows of graves, not real graves, just uniforms, boots, helmets placed carefully in a line. Some Deathworlder, some human, some unknown, and had a flower beside it, the same kind of flower. It didn't exist on any planet in the galaxy. A soft red glow surrounded each one. They bent as the wind passed, but there was no wind. One soldier began crying. He didn't know why. He just fell to the ground and whispered, "I see them." The others looked, and for a brief second, so fast no one could speak, they saw people walking among the graves. Ghosts or echoes, all watching, all waiting. The statue's voice returned. "You came with pride. You left your humility behind," and so the zone took it back. Then the statue cracked. Dust filled the air, and when it cleared, only silence remained. Again the Deathworlders stood frozen. Nothing made sense, and worse, they were beginning to forget why they came here at all. The zone was not just a place, it was a being, a memory, a punishment hand. It was just getting started. The zone no longer needed to hide itself. It had peeled away their pride, stripped their numbers, and eaten their memories. What remained were fragments of warriors, of minds, of meaning. Out of 2,000 Deathworlders, only 5 were left breathing. And even that word breathing no longer meant what it used to. They moved like shadows. Their armor hung loosely on thinner bodies. Their eyes stared ahead, not at what was in front of them, but at something far behind them, something only. They could see General Viharik was among them, but no longer in command. His mouth had been sealed by something invisible. No wounds, no blood, just silence, as if the zone had taken his words and locked them somewhere deep inside its walls. The others didn't speak either, not because they couldn't, but because speaking now felt like calling attention to themselves, and none of them wanted to be noticed by the zone again. They wandered without direction. The landscape shifted without logic. Sometimes they walked across endless deserts, sometimes through forests made of glass trees. Sometimes they walked in circles for hours, only to find themselves back at the same place, a place where their own helmets lay on the ground, filled with black sand that smelled like burned memories. One of them, once a proud sniper named Corin, began drawing symbols in the dirt, not with tools, with his own fingers. Even when they bled, he whispered numbers as he drew. No one understood them, not even Himane. Another Sergeant Droll carried a doll they didn't know where he found it. It wasn't his. It was human worn, with a missing eye and a stitched smile, but Droll cradled it like a child. And every time he put it down, the doll would appear back in his hand minutes later, clean new, still smiling. Youngest among them? Private Rek. It stopped walking. He simply sat, staring at something in the air, something no one else could see. He whispered the same phrase every 10 seconds. The walls are bleeding stars. He didn't blink. They found food, once packs of preserved meat from their original dropship. But when they opened them, packages were full of old photographs, black and white, of families of children playing in parks, of soldiers crying in trenches. None of them were Deathworlder photos. All of them were human. General Viharik tried to scream, but only a soft wheeze came out. His fingers dug into the dirt, gripping it like it was the last real thing left above the zone. Earth's satellites resumed movement. Their signal jammers were off now. The show was over. The aliens had seen enough. Only 5 remained, and even those 5 would not leave, as they had arrived inside Earth's deep bunker. The military council met in silence. A young officer read the report aloud. 5 survivors detected no hostile activity. Psychological failure levels total. The council didn't celebrate. They simply nodded and signed the file closed. A general whispered, "They've been marked far below." The last 5 stood before the edge of the zone. It didn't look like a wall, just a change in the air, one step forward. No, it would be free. But no one moved then. For the first time in days, the fog behind them began to move. Not wind, not storm, something larger. A figure not seen but felt. The zone was watching them leave. And it allowed it. Each survivor took one step forward, crossed the line, and collapsed. Earth drones waited outside. Cold machines with no emotions. They carried the 5 away. No words spoken, no comfort offered. Each survivor was placed in an isolation pod, sealed, shipped off to a hidden facility, not for recovery but for containment, because they weren't just survivors. Now they were infected, not with disease, with memory, with echo, with something the zone had buried inside their minds, something that watched through their eyes. Now in one of the pods, General Viharik blinked for the first time in hours, and his lips finally parted. He whispered a single sentence: "Earth is not what we thought." Beneath the mountains of Greenland, deeper than any public map dares to show, a hidden Earth facility opened its doors to receive 5 broken guests. Survivors of the zone arrived in black pods, each pod sealed with reinforced steel, psychic dampeners, and layers of lead, not to protect them but to protect everyone else. The facility was called Vaultnine, but the staff called it the silence floor because no one spoke above a whisper once the pods arrived. General Viharik was the first to awaken, not because he wanted to, but because something inside him refused to sleep. His body trembled, but not from cold. His armor had been removed, his name tag gone. His past erased. Earth had taken away his war and replaced it with silence across the room. A human woman in a gray lab coat watched him from behind a one-way mirror. She had a file in her hand. The front read, "Project Morntide, Phase 2." Inside were photos of Viharik before the zone. And after a man transformed, a soul rewritten. Her voice came through the intercom, gentle, measured, almost kind. "Do you remember the name of your planet?" Shiaskadvarik blinked slowly, then whispered, "I remember the screaming stones." She made a note, not surprised, not disturbed, only resigned in the next room. Private Rex stood in front of a white wall he had drawn hundreds of symbols in. His own blood, each one matched Earth's ancient languages. Languages no Deathworlder had ever seen before. Another survivor sat in the corner. Crying into a blanket that wasn't there, he kept calling for someone named Lyra, but there was no record of that name in Deathworlder history. That zone hadn't just shown them fear, it had implanted something, memories that weren't theirs, pains. They never lived wars, they never fought. Aerith knew exactly what had happened. The silence floor had been built for this moment. Not for rescue, not for rehabilitation, but for study. Because Earth had been here before 50 years ago, when the zone first appeared, thousands of humans were lost. Not just bodies, but minds. Their memories leaked into the land, and the land became alive, a collective mind, made of screams, made of sacrifice, made of defense. Earth had created the zone as an accident. A last weapon in a war they had nearly lost, a psychic field fueled by trauma, fueled by grief, but once it was born, they could not kill it, so they sealed it. Lied to the galaxy, spoke of radiation and terrain, called it unsafe, called it unimportant, and they waited, hoping no one would be arrogant enough to enter again until the Deathworlders came. Now Earth knew the zone had changed because the survivors didn't leave empty. Deep inside Valtnine, in a chamber without lights, a machine recorded the brainwaves of the 5 aliens. One pulsed in sync, each one carried an identical rhythm, not natural, not biological. It was a signal repeating every 6 seconds, a message no one understood. Yet some thought it was just a scar, but others believed it was a voice, the zone trying to speak. One human doctor said quietly, "It imprinted on them." Another whispered, "It's looking for new places to grow." Earth's leaders met in a private council. They read the reports, they listened to the silent tapes, and they made a choice. The 5 survivors would never leave Earth, not because they were prisoners, but because they were now part of something bigger. Something ancient, something Earth itself no longer controlled. In his chamber, General V. Herrick sat alone. He looked at the mirror and finally said something new. "Do you hear it too?" The mirror didn't answer, but the walls did. They pulsed gently, like a heart learning to beat in Earth had hidden the truth, not out of cruelty, but out of fear that the zone was not just a wound, but a seed, and now it had been planted in alien soil. The stars were silent when the message left Earth. Not a broadcast, not a press release, but a whisper. Encoded in darkwave frequencies only the most paranoid civilizations ever bothered to listen to. It contained no threats, no names, only this: "Do not enter Earth's zone. Those who return never return alone." Across the galaxy, the Deathworlder Empire collapsed into panic. 5 of their strongest soldiers had come back, but none of them spoke of victory. None could even speak of what truly happened. They mumbled names that didn't exist, drew maps of places that had never been discovered, and flinched at the sound of Ron. General V. Herrick, once a legend among warlords, sat in a sealed room on Earth, but now holograms of him appeared across black markets and deep forum networks in every video. He stared at the screen, eyes hollow, voice calm, and said the same sentence: "It remembers you, even if you forget yourself." Alien scientists tried to analyze his brain. They scanned the survivor's blood. They tried to cut open one of them. The body turned to dust, then reformed hours later, in the shape of a grieving human mother holding a child. That lab was shut down, its staff vanished, the recordings erased themselves. Soon, something began to spread on a distant moon near the edge of the galaxy. A fog appeared. Red, thick, alive explorers who entered came back changed. They whispered in Earth's languages, though they had never been to Earth. In one case, a soldier from the Ikari species screamed in his sleep. When asked what he saw, he said, "I saw Earth looking back at me," and then he turned to ash back on Earth. The zone had gone quiet. No movement, no whispers, only silence, the kind of silence that waits. Listen's Prepper's phone-in was locked from the inside. The 5 survivors no longer needed guards. They no longer spoke to anyone. They simply sat side by side, eyes open, hearts beating together, one rhythm, one voice above them. The stars turned slowly like eyes blinking open. The Galactic Council held an emergency meeting. Representatives argued over the zone. Was it alive? Was it a weapon? Was it a go-to-human? Ambassador stood up. She didn't argue, she didn't defend. She only said, "We buried our pain where no one could find it." He dug it up. Now it walks. No one responded because no one had an answer. In the months that followed, unmarked ships arrived in orbit around Earth. They stayed at a distance, watching, waiting. Fearful, curious, but none dared enter the zone again. Not after what happened to the Deathworlders. Not after the statues grew faces overnight. Not after the stars near. Earth began to pulse in patterns matching human heartbeat rhythms. The zone had become more than a place. It had become a language, a thought, a warning, some believed. It was Earth's final defense. Others believed it was Earth's final curse, and some believed quietly that the zone was no longer just on Earth. In a forgotten sector of space, a probe passed through a red cloud. It recorded one thing before it melted into nothing. Whisper in perfect Earth standard, spoken by a voice that did not belong to any species on record we remember. The galaxy heard, and for the first time in generations, it backed away from Earth. Not in hatred, not in pride, but in fear, because the zone had marked them. Because the zone had eyes now, not just on Earth, but everywhere in Earth. Earth remained silent, not because it was hiding, but because it no longer needed to speak.